Okay.
We can go ahead and get started. I'll go ahead and mute myself, and then you can go ahead and start.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ray Fontano. I am a peer recovery support specialist with Project Vida's Integrated Outreach for the Unhomed program. I am somebody who considers themselves to be a person in long-term recovery. And what long-term recovery means to me is that since April 14th of 2006, I have been without any mood or mind-altering substance to change my state of reality or my perception of it. And why that is important is because through learning about myself and through the pain and misery I caused myself and my family, I found out that I was someone with a substance use disorder. Um, Also, I consider alcohol to be one of those substances and use that heavily. I believe that's known as alcohol misuse disorder. Um, Education always leads to positive results. And in my case, I was somebody that needed to learn everything the hard way. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my story, and I'm going to pretty much reiterate what a peer recovery support specialist does, what the integrated outreach for the unhomed program is under Project Vida, and why it matters so much today. So a little bit about myself. I was born in a small town called Seguin, Texas. It is about 35 miles southwest of San Antonio. Um, I attended school at Seguin, but I lived in the hill country. I had a pretty good childhood. At night you could see a sea full of stars. It's beautiful. Um, you know, all kinds of wildlife, insects, everything like that. My father was a rancher. I still has a couple cows and horses that I think I may need to investigate whether or not we need to take care of those, me and my brothers, in the future. But my childhood was pretty good. I did notice that I grew up in a very fearful manner, and what that means is I didn't like to be alone much. I was often scared. Whenever it was dark, I felt alone a lot of the times. I felt like a lot of people were against me. Of course, I think I got bullied the right amount. Like I don't think I was like over bullied or under bullied. I just think bullies are a part of like growing up. Um, and somewhere around, I want to say age 12, right before I became a teenager, I I knew a couple things. The first thing is that I did not want to be myself. Uh, I looked around at everybody else. I didn't like the color of my skin. I didn't like my height. I'm about 5'6" now, um, which I like my height now. But back then, I didn't like anything about myself. And I wanted to be somebody else. And I often felt like there was something lacking inside of me. By age 12, I started to feel something that I would later know to be depression. Um, I felt like anything I would get, whether it be material or going on a trip with my family, which is super important when you're young, making those same type of memories, I just knew that all of that would eventually fade and I would be left feeling the way that I felt, alone, a bit angry, a bit helpless because there's nothing I could do about my anger, and always wanting, something outside of myself to make me feel whole. Okay. And when I became a teenager, all of those feelings, emotions, thoughts, everything just kind of came to a head. And I found the right group, you know, um, the group of misfits in high school and middle school, those that, you know, said, screw society, I got into music, I got into using little substances, and when I say little, I mean little amounts. So everybody would be getting wasted on alcohol and smoking copious amounts of cannabis. And I would just be sitting there, pretending to take a hit and sipping, nursing my beer a little bit and saying I was drunk. I wouldn't take pills. I wouldn't do any of that. because despite everything that was going on in my life and in my childhood, I did love my mother very much. And she she was a probation officer when I was younger, and she also was both her and my father took a firm stance against drugs. And she would also be part of something called the Choices Program, which would talk about the consequences of drug usage. So I knew enough as a teenager, as I was trying to like make my way in the world and find out where I fit, that that was not going to be my answer. Okay. At one point, and this speaks a lot to social pressures, you know, and just the pain and everything that I was trying to escape from, I just kept trying to do that until one day I accidentally got high. You know, I don't know how else to say it. And when I felt that feeling, I knew, as much as my world felt upside down, I knew that my whole perspective was wrong, that being high, and in this case it was just a joint, right, weed, being high was something that I wanted to be 24/7, 365. At that point, I was working. I lied on my application and got a job at Pizza Hut. You know, I guess back then in 1999, I believe it was, um, they didn't really do thorough background, checks. So I lied on my application and I started working as a young teenager at Pizza Hut. Um, and there I met and I drank with and I smoked with and later on would do cocaine with people who were like in their 20s, and I found that that was where I wanted to be all the time. Um, and one of the major parts of my perspective, excuse me, my perspective shifting to wanting to be high all the time is that all legality kind of went out the window. The idea of who I was supposed to be influenced by, of course I loved my parents to death, but at that time I felt more of a camaraderie and connection with my friends. Of course, later on, again bringing it back to education, I learned things about myself. I learned that at the time, part of the reason why I was feeling depressed and anxious, as a child, was because of my mother taking night classes to better herself, and my father was cheating on my mother. He was having an affair, right? So both of them were kind of doing their own thing, and my brothers, who were considerably older, had moved out, and it was just it was okay for me to be a latchkey kid. And at the time, I didn't mind, right? Because a kid can just do whatever he wants. But I didn't realize that during those key years that there was a major component of supervision that was supposed to be happening. So it's no wonder that I felt more of a connection with these friends, that offered something that made me feel like, I mean, like everything I ever wanted to be, right? Um, by 17, I thought that I was like an adult, I don't know how young all of you are, but okay. So by 17, I thought I was an adult. I was already driving at that point. I was using. My parents had suspected something, but and I almost failed high school. The consequences started rolling in, as they often do, and because I'd stopped paying attention to my grades and I was cutting class all the time, and because of the help of a very, very attentive principal and my mother kind of pulling strings, because by then she had started working for a little bit of the school district, I was able to get some extra time to kind of study and pass my classes. And actually that was a result of me being transferred to kind of like an alternative school near the high school. I say that because I knew that I was smart. I knew that it wasn't a lack of intelligence. Basically, this alternative school or whatever it was, it's called the Mercer Blumberg Learning Center in Seguin, Texas. They were like, "Look, you can do this at your own pace. You can either come in the morning or afternoon and just get it done." And I got it done, even though I was getting messed up every single day. I mean, taking shots of 151 liquor, um, smoking all the time, just weed 24/7, and I would later say that that was my religion. um, I started to get into fights. and it didn't take long for me to get kicked out, of my parents' house after everything kind of hit the fan. And after that, um, I kind of relied on the next high to get me to where I needed to be. I had pretty much accepted that I wasn't going to be accepted into my family for what I was. And I don't know how else to say it. I wanted to be a drug. I wanted to be that feeling. By then, I had seen a couple of psychiatrists and counselors, and they would always tell me, hey, the antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication that we're prescribing you is not going to work if you keep using. And I did it anyway. I became known as a trash can addict. The technical term for that now is a polysubstance user, because I used many, many substances. And I was one of those people that if you just gave me a couple pills, you would start explaining what it was and it would already be like in my stomach. Um, so there is a couple things that I tried after I realized, again, my world flipped. I got into legal trouble. Of course, I got arrested. I was in handcuffs about 11 times in 1 year. Um, I think that everybody who comes to the realization that they have this disease, the disease of addiction or substance use disorder, is that they need to have some kind of personal pathway of recovery. And often a higher power is involved in that. I'm not going to get into specifics of my personal pathway or my higher power, but I will say that all of you, no matter what you believe, I'm sure whatever that belief is, helped me on my journey, because I had so many chances to go to prison for years, because of the way that I acted out, because of the way that I needed to get money to fund my habit. So whatever it is you guys believe, I know that it was just something was ushering me and helping me to be a better version of myself, despite all the ways that I've tried to sabotage my life. And I believe that that power works through people. You know, um, I thank God for my parents, and even when they had it up to here and they said, "Look, you're you're killing us. We love you, but we have to separate because you are killing us." You know, um, I love them for that. I love them for the times that they helped me on my journey, and also for the times that they knew when to let go. Because that was a truth. One of the things I like to say is that this disease may be only happening in our heads, but it's a family disease. And when one person recovers, the family recovers, the family heals. So I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I hit my bottom at some point in 2006, early spring. By then it was a blur. Certain things stand out. One of the things that stand out is that I was driving up Cincinnati and El Paso, and got pulled over because I was driving up the one-way, right? I had half of my glasses on so that I could see. I didn't want to spend the money that my parents gave me to fix my glasses, which wasn't much, on fixing my glasses. Of course, I spent it on a little bit of coke, a little bit of weed, and a couple drinks. And I had also dropped out of college at that point. I was attending classes at EPCC, and I used the loans to get high. Um, but somehow I trained myself to drive with only just one lens. And when when the cop pulls me over, he realizes something's wrong. Aside from the fact that the whole car just kind of reeks of alcohol, he's like, "Son, why are you wearing just one lens? Like, why are you wearing a monocle right now? Like, are you kidding me?" Um, I step out of the car and I do his little dance with the sobriety thing, and I have substances that could put me away for a very long time. And for whatever reason, he let me go that night. And I remember feeling so ashamed, so ashamed. And at that point, I didn't even care if I'd gotten arrested. I didn't care if I had gotten into a wreck and killed myself. I was done. The drugs were no longer working. It wasn't a party anymore. It was hell, right? So I hit my bottom when I realized that there was something deeper, a deeper kind of pain that that was louder than the drugs, the numbness, the shame, the guilt. And I truly believe that whatever that pain was, it existed in some kind of spiritual way, And I called my mother and I basically told her, like, I can't do this anymore. And don't be surprised if I'm dead by morning. Luckily enough, I woke up the following morning. And yeah, that morning was April 14th, 2006. My uncle had come over and along with my brother, and they basically sat me down and they said, look, I think your mother's done with you, but she did want to tell you this, that there's this place, it's called a recovery house, residential sobriety. And for 30 days, you can stay there, you can clean up, and you can do something about this. And that's pretty much going to be her last act of kindness for a while, if not ever, right? So getting in, because at that point I had tried everything else. I tried getting clean on my own. I had tried abstinence, of course, and nothing really worked. I was in partly the reason why I was even in El Paso when that was going on was because I had moved to multiple cities and I always found the people who use. Um, so when I found myself at that place, it was called Casa Vida de Salud. I learned a few things. I learned that I didn't need to be the person that I thought was going to get me through this. And I didn't even necessarily need to stay clean for 4 days, because I would always like drop off around like the fifth day, you know. I said, if I could stay clean, if I can stay away from the substances for 24 hours, I'll be good. And then I'll just worry about the next day, you know. And while I was in Casa Vida for 30 days, I started learning things. I started learning that I wasn't a bad person. I had a sickness, okay? I started learning the importance of what a support group actually is, I started learning how to reach out to that support group. And a personal pathway of recovery not only presented itself to me, but was attractive to me at that point. I mean, I was desperate, Um, it wasn't a moral defect, but it was a sickness. It was a mental health crisis that I needed to address, possibly for the first time in my life. And when I did, I found that a lot of people came forward to want to help me with that. And a lot of those people were those that had gone through what I had gone through. I went to 12-step groups. Um, and I found somebody, in the 12-step groups that are called a sponsor. So a mentor, somebody that had done the 12-step program before me and who was willing to show me how they did it. And that was attractive to me. Um, I don't know if this is going to sound weird, but for the first few years, I couldn't be on my own. I tried living in an apartment like right after I got out of Casa Vida. And of course, like, yeah, I was like, this is crazy. I'm going to end up using, because this is something that is an obsession. It's based off of obsession and compulsion. The obsession is the mental part of it. The compulsion is once I take one sip, I cannot stop. Okay. I cannot stop. So I had to be somewhere where other people like me lived, So I lived in a sober residential house. At the time, it was called an Oxford house, for about 18 months. While there, I found a job. I started to work. I started to work my steps. I started to rediscover and discover, possibly for the first time, who I was. And I realized that I liked being somebody in recovery. I liked. It's weird because all the things having to do with depression and anxiety, they were all still there, but I was working on it in one way, shape, or form. And that made life tolerable. It made life manageable for those first few years. And there was times where I was actually experiencing joy. And keep in mind, I had not experienced joy since I was, a tween, somebody who was 11, 12. And I wanted to hold on to that and maintain that. We have 2 more minutes left to 7. Should I keep going, or what do you think?
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, I tell you,
Um,
sometimes I get to rambling.
Bree, is it gonna be 30 minutes and 30 minutes?
It was going to, but honestly, I want to hear more from Ray, if that's okay.
Okay.
Yes, Richard,
Yeah.
even he wrote in the chat saying keep going because I feel like it's very inspirational and I feel like everybody is enjoying this talk. So okay, that's already another person. All right, yeah, he's gonna
Yeah.
have the okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. I just looked at the clock, y'all. So I find, and especially now, with the pandemic and everything happening, I find that the service that I'm able to provide, and I guess I'll just say this, is part of the reason why I believe that I was even allowed to live, and allowed to work on myself, and allowed to find that connection with another human being again, is so that I could understand what being a sponsor is, what being a mentor is, and what being an example is to other people like me. And yeah, I can't say it enough, man. I never want anyone to go through the things that I went through. Yeah, and I know that a lot of people are still doing that. Okay. So it's important, yeah, it's important for me to be able to be somebody that they can reach out to, that they can trust, right? And I honestly don't think that if anyone, well, I guess I can put it this way, I have a hard job. So being a peer recovery support specialist is somebody that has to see the disease for what it is, to see the sickness for what it is. And being able to coach somebody, through, even if it's like they've had 6 months of sobriety, they're doing wonderful, right? And then they have a slip, and they're right back at that bottom. Maybe they're a little bit lower, If I could plant a seed in there that can just make sure that they're alive the next day, that's enough. Even if it takes 2-3 hours of being on the phone, even if I have to collaborate, which I often do with law enforcement, which is not an easy feat for me, I'll do it. And if I have to collaborate with a lot of other agencies that are, just trying to get one person well, I'll do it because it matters. The family heals when one person heals and gets better, and the community heals. I'm so sorry.
No worries, Ray.
No worries at all. Thank you for sharing all this.
You're welcome. So when one person unfortunately passes from this disease, the community is in pain, right? And part of what I want to do, and part of what I keep doing, why I keep doing what I am doing, is so that the community can continue healing. And Project Vida has given me that opportunity to do that, and not have to worry about where my next meal is going to come from. I've actually, because of my recovery and being able to maintain it, I've actually had I've been able to get my degree, which is wonderful. I've been able to work in a department that has to do with financing, which is wonderful. I've been able to work a little bit in the medical field, and when Christopher Bailey from Project Vida offered me this position, I knew it was perfect, and somehow it all comes together, and I'm grateful that I can be somebody that that if anyone is having an issue, because like I said, a family disease, so I know all of you probably know at least one person that they can contact me, and I can connect them with the right services. Um, I just want to say briefly, being a peer recovery support specialist under Project Vida, I'm going to talk a little bit about the integrated outreach for the unhomed. So that was part of the reason I was getting emotional, because I was homeless and now I get a chance to work with the unhomed. So there's people out there without houses. They don't know where their next meal is going to come from. And really the only thing that they have to hold on to is that next high. And because of that, the crime rates go up. Because of that, people end up getting hurt. Because of that, that misery kind of perpetuates itself. And so what the integrated outreach for the unhomed program is able to do is they're able to take one of these individuals, and they're able, Project Vida funds for a 90-day stay in Casa Vida. So they have a place to go to kind of dry out, sober up, start learning, right, about who they are. And then after they transition out of Casa Vida, I will be their coach. And sometimes I was told by Chris to coach up to 5 years, so I tell them, like, I will be your coach until you terminate services with me, and I can make sure that they get the caseworker, the social worker they need. So it's providing resource brokerage as well, and always being there, when they have like a trigger to want to go back out. With that, I think I may be talking in circles. So does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, so the mics are open, and if anyone wants to go ahead and put a question, or they can unmute themselves or type it in the chat.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Bridget, I didn't ask if it was okay to go over time. I'm sorry, that was so
No,
rude of
yeah,
me.
go for it. Thank you so much, Ray, for sharing. Really, truly appreciate it. Go ahead, take the time.
Does anyone have any questions?
So I had one. When it comes to what you were saying, like getting out of the recovery home, like after the 90-day period or however long that may be, like from a neuroscience perspective, the cues are the environments, right, that you are usually in that kind of help you, like they cue you to use substances. So is there some sort of, is that like the social worker's job to kind of keep up with the patient that would be coming out of a recovery home?
Yeah. So are you talking about a social worker or a recovery coach?
Well, I'm not sure. How does that work?
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on. Okay. Excellent question then. Yeah. So let me break it down. So what a peer recovery support specialist is, otherwise known as a recovery coach, is somebody who helps them to get acclimated with their surroundings. So
Okay.
from a neuroscience perspective, when they get to be abstinent for about 90 days, that's amazing for them, right? First, they have to choose to do that.
Right.
However, what studies have shown is that 90 days to 6 months, there's still a high chance for a recurrence of use. And part of the reason why is because of that reward system, right? So it triggers that reward system, and it's so ingrained that anything can trigger it. So a taste, a smell, a sound, a song, So what I'm able to do is just kind of be there for them and get them plugged into any kind of counseling services, right? Especially if they're dual diagnosed. So resource brokerage with somebody that can help them with housing. And in the meantime, have weekly sessions with them. So make sure that they go to their therapy, their psych appointment, but their session with me, I use motivational interviewing to be sure to kind of hear where they're at in that point in their recovery, and if I see any red flags, I'm honest about it. One of the things that I'm able to do that a counselor isn't, or a social worker isn't, or yeah, a counselor definitely isn't able to do this, but is that they can call me anytime, even if it's 3 in the morning. I'm able to meet with one of my clients or participants at a public place just to grab a cup of coffee and talk. Right? That's another thing. So, what a recovery coach does is basically coach them into self-efficacy. So being able to do all that on their own so that they can have a chance to find their personal pathway of recovery. And that's important, right? Because with me, it just makes sense. Like I'm able to maintain my recovery because of what I found. But there's so many people, a lot of my friends that when I went to, first started going to 12-step groups, they just didn't make it. They died with a needle in their arm, you know? Um, and they never got a chance to experience having a personal pathway. And I think that is so important. So between 90 days and 6 months, it's imperative that I meet with them at least once a week. After that, maybe, let's say they get a job, they get into a relationship, they're able to do normal things, right? That everyone else enjoys. And at that point, I'm just more of a sounding board, because hopefully they would have a good rapport with their therapist, and they're actively working steps with the sponsor. Or if it's faith-based, that's another thing too. There's also refuge recovery, there's smart recovery for agnostics. There's a wide plethora of pathways of recovery, but it's my job to make sure that they stay themselves in order enough to find that. So yes, go ahead, Richard.
Hi. First off, great talk. That was a really, really awesome story, or about your recovery, and really brings hope. I'm sure you've helped a lot of people with that. Just have a question in terms of recovery. Do you see a difference when it comes to a person who may be, maybe for example, in your situation, you're isolated and by yourself, versus maybe people who have families or maybe friends group who can help them recover? Like, do you in your experience, have you seen differences in progression of, I mean, no one ever truly, I guess, recovers, but in terms of getting over that hump of seeing triggers and seeing things that may cause relapse?
Absolutely, yes. So there's a saying in recovery, and it's an addict alone is in bad company. So isolation is one of those things that will kill somebody. It will drive somebody to want to either commit suicide or just keep using until they die, right? So it's imperative for them to have a support group, and that's not always easy. When somebody comes in with family who is supportive, it makes a huge difference. Just my brother and one uncle being able to, from the distance, just kind of check on me did so much, because it reminded me that I am from a family. And in early recovery, you might have somebody in your family or a friend get into recovery, and they're incredibly selfish for those first 3 months, because they kind of have to be. They're finding out who they are. Any kind of support that comes from a family member, and if the whole family is supportive, all the better. I'm able to have, as long as consent forms are signed, I'm able to have conversations with the family members of the people that I coach today. It's great. But I will say this: a person's choice to use is always their choice. And that's I've seen several people who just right off the streets or couch surfing, that haven't been in touch with their family for years, maintain years of sobriety. And at the same token, I've seen people, that are incredibly close with their family member, that I'm always talking to their mother, once a month, about how they've slipped again. So it's just one of those things where it's a mental health issue, and maintenance, you know, absolutely needs to happen, whether they have a family support or not, you know, but it 100% helps. And yeah, that's a great question. I will also say, because I don't know if I fully answered it, but I specialize, you know, so with the unhomed population. So usually it's people that have disconnected from family members, and that is challenging, you know.
I have a question.
Okay.
So yeah, thank you so much for your story. It really takes a lot of courage to share the information that you shared with us today. So really thank you so much for your insight.
No
I guess what
problem.
my question is on the formation of good habits,
Mhm.
because I know something that I've heard and something that I've actually been meaning to start for a while is maybe doing something like at the beginning or ending of your day, writing down 3 things that you're thankful for, and just
Yeah.
taking a moment to be positive. So I guess my question is for you specifically during your recovery process, was there anything that you did on a daily basis or any strategies that you implemented that helped with your process?
Oh my God, so many. Yeah. So on that note, and that's a great question, by the way. And I give my participants this assignment, you know, every time is to carry around a gratitude list, which is something that my mentor told me to do at the time. So write down the things that I'm grateful for, and when I'm going through something, you know, whether it's, you know, having to pay back my debt to society, you know, those first few months, you know, I had accrued a lot of warrants, or just having a really bad day, you know, at work, feeling like I'm not enough, right? Because I work with a bunch of normies, right? At that time, you know, I worked with a bunch of normies, and like feeling that, or remembering rather, that I am part of something bigger, and that I do have something to be grateful for, plenty of things, and also that I am growing and progressing in my recovery. So that assignment alone, like, kind of reconnects a person, you know. And I would advise everybody to do that. Actually, it's just to write down 3 things that they're grateful for. So that was one of the things. But I think the 12 steps really were like life changing, because first off, they taught me what I'm dealing with. Okay, a lot of people with mental health disorders, they don't know what they're dealing with, you know. And especially when you get arrested for it and you're called by the judge straight up, like the judge told me, you're a drug addict, you're not going to amount to anything, and we're wasting our time having to deal with you, you know. um that was something that I was like, okay, you know, I guess I'll have to just take that label and just do something with it, you know. But when I was in a position to actually find out what I was dealing with, that just changed the game for me, you know. So yeah, the 12 steps helped me to do that. Thank you.
Any last questions, you guys? We do need to go on to the next speaker. No? Okay. Well, thank you so much. And you brought up very good points as to what the judge had so rudely, you know, called you and stuff. That's what we're trying to end, right? Like, this is why we're having this whole week, is so that we can like end the stigma. There's
Right.
so many stigmas about, you know, homeless, the substance use disorder. People don't understand that it's a brain disease, and we're trying to add more, you know, neuroscience so that many others can understand what exactly is happening, right?
Yes,
And not
absolutely.
to automatically judge a person. And so we're so grateful that you're here, because I think you can change a lot of lives just by sharing your story, or even taking that first step. So the next speaker is going to be Bridget. And more than ever, I really wanted her also to be here, not only to have someone share a story, but like Ray had mentioned, we all know someone that's going through this. And there was a person in my life that had, passed away from, substance use. And just the friends around me kept saying, like, we tried, we tried, we tried. And there was just a certain point that they stopped trying, right? And it wasn't until that person was gone for them to say, well, maybe I could have done more, right? And not everybody gets, the support that they need like you were able to, right? So what you're doing is amazing. And I hope Bridget can provide more information as to who we can go to get more help when it comes to a friend, yourself, or, just watching over a student, because some of us are graduate students and we teach a lot of undergraduates. So I'm going to go ahead and let Bridget take the floor. Thank you so much, Ray. We really appreciate it. You
Thank
have
you.
no idea.
Thank you so much. And yes, if you have any questions, so my email, I left it in the chat. Oh, it's getting dark. Yeah, I left my email in the chat if you have any questions whatsoever. So yes.
Can we go ahead and share this on our social media as well?
Absolutely, yes. And that warm line number is specifically to the integrated outreach for the unhomed. So if you know anybody who, even if you see somebody on the corner and they say that they want services after you speak with them, please call that number or have them call.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Ray, for sharing. I really appreciate it as well. How much time do we have? I know we were going to go till like 7:30, so
Honestly,
that's
that's why
fine.
I said it was a tentative schedule, whatever you can provide us.
Okay,
I'm so
no,
sorry.
yeah. Don't even worry about it. That was amazing. I like really, truly how everyone said we appreciate it. So I'll just give you guys a little bit of information. So I'm one of the graduate students at UTEP, and I'm with the UTEP Collegiate Recovery Program. A lot of individuals don't even know we exist, but we are a support service on campus for students who are in recovery. And it's not just substances or alcohol, it could be anything, eating disorders, whatever it is that the addiction is. Even if they're not sure about recovery, if they're thinking about recovery, we do offer the support. And like I said, we're on campus. I'll go ahead and type my information in a little bit later. But again, I just kind of want to like reiterate a little bit of what Ray said. Speaking of support, it's really important. And a lot of us individuals don't realize that there's students maybe next to you, there's students online, whatever it may be, that are going through recovery or they're trying to go through recovery, and you may not even know it. And so just kind of looking out for individuals. And what we do is we, the CRP hosts a recovery ally training every month. And so this month it'll be on the 30th at 11 a.m. and you can find us on Campus Edge. And we also host an addiction and recovery workshop. And that is on April 1st at 11 a.m. And it's also on Campus Edge as well. And so what we're trying to do is end the stigma, as we said, and try and use that person first language, which is referring to the person as a whole, not by their disease or disorder. And so we also try to spread awareness of that there is recovery on campus. There are students who struggle on campus. And so I can go ahead and share some resources that I've had on my PowerPoint. And they're just some like local resources that we have here. One of them being Project Vita. We actually work really closely with Christopher and Jamie Bailey. And so if you guys get a chance to attend those Recovery Ally trainings, they will be in them. So Al-Anon is obviously for family and friends, AA, Aliviane, Emergence, Peak, Project Vida, Recovery Alliance. And so if anyone wants any of these, we have actually a trifold. Go ahead and shoot us an email and I'll go ahead and put the email down. And we can also offer these resources to all you. So if somebody's seeking support, send them our way. If somebody doesn't know where to go, then we can sort of steer them in the right direction and we can help them out. And so these are some of the national and online resources that we have. as well. And so this is our information, but like I said, I can go ahead and put it down in the chat. So we are at UTEP Recovery at utep.edu. We're also on social media. Since everything's virtual because of COVID now, we're really big on social media now. So you can find us at UTEP_CRP. And like I said, if you have someone who's seeking support services, they're thinking about recovery, they just don't know where to go, then you can steer them in our direction and we can try and help them out, because support is crucial, especially on campus due to all the stressors, the everyday lives, exams, everything that we're going through, especially now during COVID, as we said. One thing that we're also trying to do, since I know majority of you all are in research, is that we're trying to gather more statistics on campus about drinking, about alcohol use, substance use, about recovery, and how that experience is for students. And so we encourage you all as well to kind of just help us spread awareness, to get it out. That way we know more or less, you know, what it is that students are going through, what it is that they need, the resources that they need. And we are on we are not clinical based at all. We are just support on campus. So let me go ahead and type our email as well as our social media. And does anybody have any questions for me? Any at all?
You said that you have the events are on Campus Edge.
Yes, so you can find us on Campus Edge. Again, the Recovery Ally training is March 30th at 11 a.m. And then April 1st is the Addiction and Recovery, but they're reoccurring, so we offer these trainings every single month.
Oh, great.
Yes.
So you can hear me, correct?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Sorry, my laptop kind of glitched there for a second. Would you be able to like describe the ally training?
Yes, so basically I was going to give you a little snippet, but now you're just going to have to attend the training, sorry. No, so the Recovery Ally training is, we basically show others how to support someone who's in recovery, just by basically being there, kind of knowing like those little cues. We also do like little scenarios to where we'll give out a scenario of like maybe a student that's in class, whatever it may be, and kind of how to respond. And then we go over, like I said, mentioned person first language, as well as what substance use is. And then we do also give out the resources. The addiction and recovery training is a little bit more specific in that sense. And so you kind of learn a little bit more about recovery, its process as well. I know Ray mentioned the different pathways, so we also talk about that in the training. And so it's very interesting. If you're interested, like I said, you can find it on Campus Edge, and we'd love to have all of you there.
Thank you. That sounds really interesting, and it's really good to see this type of education and awareness on campus, especially now since everything's virtual and a lot of people don't get that support. So thank you.
Right. Yes. And I can, like I said, we usually post it on our social media. So you could look out there. We'll post the links and stuff like that. That way you all can sign up for it. Any more questions? Yes.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
On the chat, you were talking about like using the proper terminology. So I just put down a link from NIDA on the correct terminology when it comes to substance use, how things should be approached so that we're more aware, right? And so
Yes.
that we do end the stigma. So I encourage people to check that out. Also, if anyone else has questions, Carla, you can put in the Google Doc so that we can take attendance. Thank you, Carla. And if anybody has more questions for Bridget.
Oh, no more questions. Well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you all for having us. Ray, thank you for sharing your story again. You all know where to find us. And feel free to reach out, send us a DM, send us an email, whatever you guys like. We're trying to get our program out there so that students know more about it. So thank you, we appreciate it.
Yes, definitely. We will share that with our listserv, and maybe some of the officers can encourage other students to go to the training as well, because that is important. And we should, share that type of information, because I really had to look for you guys. So yeah, it's probably best that we keep sending out your information on social media.
Yes, please. Sometimes we're like overshadowed by caps, but it's okay because we work under them. So we really, truly, we try to get our name out there. So the UTEP Collegiate Recovery Program. And again, thank you guys so much for everything.
Thank you for presenting. That was awesome. I definitely will check that out. Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much. You guys are great. Okay, we can log off, you guys, but if you can fill out your forms for any other student members.
Yes, please. So you can collect all the points. Coming to these talks that are very important. I'll give you the most points that you can get during the competition. So just for coming here, you get 20 points. So don't let this opportunity just like leave, because tomorrow for any other like competition activity, it might be just like 5 points or 10 points. So don't forget to put your attendance, please.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end the live stream, Bree. So thank you both, Ray and Bridget, for